Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches producing big time results. On behalf of myself, Coach Gage Rozier, and co-host Coach Preston Peterson, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's show. Before we get to today's episode, I'd like to recognize our amazing sponsors who allow us to bring this podcast to you for free. Our first sponsor is TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is the leading software for high schools and colleges by providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. Right now, if you sign up with code BIGTIME, you will receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuilder. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuilder. Thank you to Hewitt and staff at TeamBuilder for their continued support. They do an amazing job. Our second sponsor is Optimum Nutrition Athletics. Athletes train hard to play at the highest level, and all that hard work raises the bar on muscle recovery. Optimum Nutrition's athletics program has industry-leading products that can help. Protein is key to muscle recovery, and Gold Standard 100% Whey, the world's best-selling whey protein powder, provides 24 grams of protein that mixes easily just using a spoon and a glass. Gold Standard 100% Whey is made in Optimum Nutrition's state-of-the-art facilities in Aurora, Illinois, and is banned substance tested by Informed Choice. Through Optimum Nutrition's athletic program, you can also get Pro Gainer for big athletes looking to become even bigger, and ready-to-eat protein snacks including Protein Crisp bars, cake bites, wafers, and almonds. After dominating the sports nutrition industry for over 30 years, newly created Optimum Nutrition Athletics brings that same trust and quality that knows how to put convenient options for protein in the hands of athletes who desire to become bigger, stronger, and better at their sport. If you'd like more information and free samples, email Derek Walters, Director of Optimum Nutrition Athletics, whose email and contact information you can find in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much to our amazing sponsors for their continued support. Now, let's get to today's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. This week, we have Coach Lucas Stanton on. And Coach Stanton, I've got to know over the last 3 years, and Coach Stanton is an awesome coach, does a great job with strength and speed. He's kind of been to multiple programs, and he'll talk about that in this episode, but he's been to multiple programs and has started something special at each one of them, and taking something from maybe it's low participation or no program in general, and taking it to something that's very, very awesome and great programs for the student athletes, and I'm excited to dig in with that. Not only is Coach the head strength and speed coach at Anamosa High School, but he's also the head football coach. So talking maybe just a little bit about how he balances his time and what that looks like with wife and kid at home, and just how all of that kind of meshes together. It might be a little bit of what we get into also. Coach is going to talk a few things about his culture, some of the things that he's really wanting to learn about, and where he wants his program to go in the next 5 years are some of the highlights that we'll have. Before we get started with Coach Stanton, just wanted to do a quick reminder about Riley and Crushing Cancer. If you are a coach out there that wants to submit a workout of the day to Gage Rozier at gmail.com, there's an ebook that Gage is putting together to benefit his cousin who has leukemia, and then also going to go to cancer research. All the proceeds will go to that. And if you want more information, please reach out to bigtimestrength@gmail.com or gagerozier@gmail.com. Okay. Coach Stanton, thank you for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you've been, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Coach. I appreciate it. And just a little bit about my background and kind of how I got started was I actually went to Mount Vernon High School, where you are currently, and then I ended up from there going to I went to Luther College for a year, transferred to Cornell College right there in Mount Vernon. Was an exercise science major there, and as soon as I graduated Cornell, I got into coaching. And I actually had a semester to finish up at Cornell because I transferred from Luther. And from there, I just got into coaching with the football program and At that time, they brought a strength and conditioning coach in, and I knew that was something, obviously I was passionate about. So I kind of, was his shadow. It wasn't necessarily an internship by any means. I would stop in and talk to him, and, never really got into programming or anything like that, but just knew okay, this might be something I'm interested in. And from there, went and GA'd at the University of Dubuque, was there for a little bit, then went back to Cornell College with that staff that went from UD to Cornell. And then I ended up out in Ohio. And that's really kind of where I really started getting into the strength and conditioning stuff. When I was out there, I was the associate head coach, defensive coordinator, and strength and conditioning. And I mean, the principal just straight up told me when I was out there, we need to revitalize and re-energize our PE department, and was kind of given that task. And also, with the strength and conditioning stuff, they had no structure, no set program, and they had just put a little bit of money into the weight room as far as new equipment goes. So, and I can get into that a little bit later about some things that we did, but that's really where I ended up, really, finding a strong passion for this profession. And then I moved back to Iowa and was at Cedar High School, and, took over the strength and conditioning program there, with a little help from the head football coach. And then I ended up at Dubuque Wahlert, was there for a year. And, both Cedar and Wahlert had some programs beforehand. So it wasn't like I was, totally restarting anything there. And then now, here I am at Anamosa in my third year. And, when I got to Anamosa, there was a nice sized weight room. Equipment was not taken care of very well, and there was no structured program or anything like that. So, and I can get into all that stuff later. But that's kind of how I got to where I am now and where I've been.
That's an awesome experience, just playing in from the college level, and then also multiple states for the high school level and schools. And one of the things that I'm excited to hear from you is kind of starting the culture and what that looks like. So, Coach, could you go into kind of your program's mission statement and core values, and then what it would look like to see your culture in action?
Yeah, so, our mission statement is we're in a relentless pursuit to reach our full potential as people and as athletes. And then we will control what we can through a process of attitude and effort every day. And then we always talk, and I know this phrase gets thrown around a lot, trust the process, but when I say that, our kids know what that process is. It's through a attitude and effort. And then our core values, which we're kind of looking at maybe changing these or seeing if our kids, if they still think that's what these are. But where we're at right now is attitude, relentless, accountable, commitment, and enthusiasm. But to kind of go into the attitude and effort, that was the first thing that I really brought up to our kids at Anamosa was, I just want you guys to come in with a great attitude every day, positive attitude, no matter what else is happening in your life, come into the room with a positive attitude. I'll do the same thing. And then just give me your full effort, and, not even necessarily just, doing every rep the hardest as you can or running every, sprint as hard as you can. Just that effort looks like, coming into the weight room, attentive, being coachable, and doing the best you can. And that's all I ask of the kids. That's what I told them from the very first day. And I said, that's going to be our process, bringing a great attitude and effort. And they really hadn't had anyone, before me that would come in and do these things with them. They had a weight room, they had a PE program, but there was no structure. There was no, they didn't have cards. They didn't have a set program. It was just kind of written up on the board for them and no real programming. And and that's not to put anyone down that was there before me, but that they just didn't have that. And the weight room didn't have any organization or anything like that. So those were some of the first things that we did when I got there was, all right, let's organize the weight room. Let's make it, look presentable so the kids, want to be in there. And then building relationships with those kids. That was the first thing I did is I went in and I talked to, I was there as the football coach as well. So those were the guys that I first talked to, but then I moved on to our female athletes as well. And really just kind of took a poll of, what are some things that has been done in the past? What are some things that, we're currently doing just in my first few weeks? And what are some things that you would like to see done? And asked them what their goals were. And, just kind of took a gauge from there. And then we talked about things that had absolutely nothing to do with athletics or strength and conditioning. I got to know them as people. I feel like that's super important in building relationships, and told them we can make this happen, but you guys, I just need you to trust me. I'll trust you. I'm going to commit to you if you commit to me, all that stuff. And, we slowly started building those numbers as far as participation went. I think kids started to see that, this was really about them as people as well, not just as athletes. We made it a very welcoming place to come into, whether it's presentable, aesthetic wise in the weight room, just clean it up. We got new equipment and I just tried to really, even on those days where you're kind of frustrated with, because that happens with everybody. You get frustrated with what's kind of going on, or maybe some people didn't show up or whatever it may be. I really just tried to stay high energy and positive every day when they were coming in. And whether that's, just giving every kid a high five as they walk in the door and being excited about them being there. And I think kids really started to see that this was something different, and they wanted to be a part of it. And you kind of slowly started to see our numbers go up in participation. So I don't know if I answered all your questions there, but that's kind of, how we got things started at Anamosa anyway.
Yeah, I think it's very important to show from the very beginning, when kids see that you care, it really translates to them caring just as much. So I think one of the first things you said is you organize the weight room, right? And for me, yeah. It's really interesting to see that morph into, me wanting the weight room to be clean and kind of having these standards too. Now it's kind of self-policed, and I will have people come over to me and say, hey, you want to make sure to announce this. We've got dumbbells out of the positions that they need to be in. Right. And so
definitely.
I think it's really cool because just hearing the culture that's you're building there is very, very cool to see the progression that's happening. And, and your next thing that you talked about is just building that relationship and what that looked like. And it was just having conversations, over and over and over, having those conversations and kind of debriefing where are we at right now and where do we want to go. And I think that's such a valuable thing for every organization, not just strength and conditioning or speed and agility or anything like that, but just in general, to be able to see where you're at, assess, and then move forward. So awesome stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think what gets lost sometimes is, we're dealing with people, and it's all about relationships when it comes to that point. And, I loved what you said about the dumbbells being left out and people coming up to you, because that was kind of when I started to realize oh man, we're starting to turn the corner here, because I had multiple kids come up and say, hey, somebody left their dumbbells out. Can you announce that? Or just like you said, and then, or I would look over and I would see somebody go back. They were one of the last people walking out, and they noticed that there were some things out of place, and they went back and did that. And then they went and had a conversation with that group that was over there just about, hey, make sure you guys remember to put your stuff away, and this is how it goes. I thought that was okay, we're really starting, just little things like that really excite me about turning the culture.
That's cool, Coach. And one of the things that I have a question for you, because I just want to know what's next. When you establish a culture like that and you get people buying in all over the place, what's it look like to continue that culture on or to push for more?
Yeah, and that's funny you ask that, because that's kind of what we were talking about this summer with some of the coaches that have been helping and started to help is I kind of brought that up, like, what's the next step here? Because we've got a really good foundation now. How do we keep this thing rolling? And and I don't know if I have the correct answer or the answer, but I think what we're going to try to really do is, we have our middle school camp during the summer, and our middle school kids certainly do some stuff during the school year, but trying to get more involved with our middle school kids, so that when they come into high school, they just know, okay, this is the standard. This is how, things are. This is what we do. And it's just kind of a natural thing. But we don't want to get to a point where we're just complacent. So how do we keep reaching for more? And I think that's a great question. I think one of the things we're going to do, like I said, is, we're going to start, really trying to instill those values and our habits at an earlier age and at the middle school level. I think that's our next step, is to, really get some like scope and sequence going with maybe even our elementary to middle school to high school.
That's sweet. I think the natural progression is, how can we reach more, right? And that's those things are, when you got people around you, hopefully other physical educators that are on board with that, like middle school all the way down to elementary, there's no reason, at least the fundamentals aren't being taught. And maybe,
right,
like the value curriculum that you're talking about, like just making sure that they understand the values all the way through. If those are instilled from a young age, that's a well-oiled machine by the time they get to you, which is a great spot to be in, so that you can look for, like hitting on your mission there, that you're hitting the full potential, in life, sports, whatever it is. So that's sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other thing is just to, constantly demonstrate as the educator too, that we are wanting to get better as, in our profession as well. So, our kids know that I'm constantly, and it's not because I'm telling them, I think I just try to show by example that I'm constantly looking for new ways to get better as a coach, but also to make them better. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel by any means, but always looking for, okay, how can we improve our weight room? Like, I'll ask them, I'm like, all right, so if we, like this summer, we decided, okay, we moved our racks out, and I asked the kids a lot, I'm like, so, like, what do you guys think this would look like? How would you feel like space-wise is getting enough space? And so we moved our racks out a little bit further from the walls to give them more room, and talked about rearranging a few things here, and and just bring up, like, what kind of equipment do we need, and just things like that, so they see that we're constantly looking for ways to improve and hit that full potential. I think just doing little things like that, kind of by example, also lets the kids know, like, okay, we have to make sure we're getting better as well.
You've been at a few different programs, right? You're at the college level where you're doing mostly football, but you're still around strength and conditioning, and then you go high school level in a couple different states, and like that, with all the things that you've got to experience and start, there's got to be struggles along the way. So what's one or two of your toughest hurdles that you've had, and then how did you overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, so and I think we've talked about this before, how I was as that first job out in Ohio, how I was then, that's almost 10 years ago now, to how I am now just as a coach, and what I know, completely different. And I was just kind of like thrown into the fire a little bit. I had no formal like internship or graduate assistantship or anything like that. So it took a lot of like reaching out to people, but obviously the toughest hurdle for me, and I think anywhere you go when you're new, or you're going to a place that hasn't had great structure in the strength and conditioning program, or hasn't had a program, is building that trust with not only the athletes, but the adults in the building, the coaches. And for whatever reason, whether they had a bad experience in the past, or they didn't think that it was valuable to their team. It all comes down, what I realized was it all comes down to, educating them, not coming at them in a way where you have to do this, this must be done, and then giving them no reason why. And I think maybe there was a couple places, you know, in Ohio in particular, that maybe it was forced upon people, you know, right away with no reason, like, how is this going to make us better? And once that was done, we eventually got there, but it wouldn't have taken as long as if we would have been like, okay, so we just want to educate you on why this program is going to be important, and, you know, and what the background is. And, you know, the first thing that I did at Anamosa was not the first thing I did in Ohio. You know, I didn't have those conversations with the kids about their, like, me caring about them as people and building those relationships first. You know, with some of the football guys, I had that a little bit, but what I learned was, you know, the saying, you know, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right? So I think that's how that saying goes. But, you know, once they know how much you care, then you can start telling them, like, you know, this is what I know. I know this is going to work, or this is my background, you know, and this program, trust the process, all those things, whatever you want to say. I think it all goes back to that relationship piece and educating, whether it's the kids or the adults, on the benefits of a structured quality strength and conditioning, strength and speed program. So that was I think those are huge hurdles. I think we all have those as coaches, you know, getting that buy-in. That's kind of how we've decided to deal with it. I think, the younger me didn't handle it the right way. I think over the years, I've figured out how to handle it a lot better.
Coach, you know, at every one of these places, you're getting the culture rolling. You've got the challenges. One of the biggest challenges for almost every coach in the nation is figuring out how they're going to fund their department. You know, if they're getting a budget, awesome. But, you know, like, so many people don't have a budget, or if they do, it's somewhat small. And to be able to service our athletes the best way that we can, we have to have some tools at least. What are some of the ways that you've acquired additional funding for your department?
Yeah, so and that's something right now I would even say is the next step, and for us is to do more of that. But, you know, the one thing I did was at Anamosa, especially, was, you know, we got in there and we had, like I said, and you've seen our weight room. It's a good space. It was a great space. The equipment was average at best, and it was very old, and we had stuff that was falling apart. And there was a parent that came in to pick her son up, and she just happened to be on the school board. And I had no idea. I was so new, I had no idea. But she was pretty much coming in to welcome me to the district. And when I found out, I was like, I got to show you this equipment. You know, I think this, from one, it's a safety thing. And I'm like, two, it's not nice. You know, I want to give our kids the best that they can get. So I showed it to her, and I said how this could be a safety issue. And I said, I really would like to, you know, present some stuff to, whether it's the booster club, school board, whoever, on, you know, the benefits of strength and speed, the weight room, all that. And, you know, I put together a list of needs, not wants, like things I thought were essential to have just from a safety standpoint, and then from benefiting the athlete standpoint. I put together, you know, equipment. I didn't go over the top. I talked to our AD. I said I would really love for us to arrange a meeting with a booster club and some numbers like that, because we're going to need to fundraise some money to do this. And so he thought it was a great idea. Booster club came into the weight room. You know, I showed him some before pictures of what it looked like when I first got there. So I'm talking, this is a few months into me being there. And we had already rearranged it. And I showed him the pictures of what it looked like before, what it looked like now. And then I told him kind of what my vision was and why it was beneficial to athletes and non-athletes as well, because I really wanted to stress to them, like, non-athletes, this is going to help them as well. It's not going to be for athletes only by any means. It's going to impact all of our kids. So that got some people excited about, I think, the direction that we were wanting to go, and that they had somebody that was willing to put this all together and structure it. And I mean, I put a whole spreadsheet together of what the cost would be and all this. And so what we ended up doing was actually having, we just did a fundraiser, and we actually, at one of the home basketball games, we had a check that was presented to us. It was like kind of for the kickoff of the fundraiser. And it was a check that was presented to us by the Booster Club, but a couple people in the community had donated some money, and the Booster Club put some money towards it too. And so we had a big check, and I think the amount was like $20,000 on that first check. And then we had a goal of, I think it was $65,000 to raise. And whether it was just by people donating, that was some of it. We did a clothing fundraiser, and then we had a barbecue out in the summer, which had fireworks, and it was just kind of a community barbecue. And people came out, paid to get in, donated, and we hit the goal, I think, and we still have money left over in that account to use. And we've got people that are continuing to donate just like that. And but I know that's not going to happen for forever, where people are just going to be willing to donate to this program. So we're going to have to find some other ways to fundraise, whether that's by online clothing stores, can drives, card sales, whatever it may be. But that's a background kind of where some of the money came from to get our new equipment and what we did.
That's awesome. So, like to see community support in that way is a pretty special deal, and when people are giving to something that they find value in, and their kids are getting that opportunity too, it's kind of cool when all that comes together. And like you said, I've been to your weight room. I'm pretty jealous of the space, man. Like it's in a huge open room, got a lot of space for athletes to work, and the equipment that you've got going in there now is pretty awesome. So I think that's a testament to you and then everybody in the community putting in that work and the time for it. That's sweet stuff.
Yeah. It was, I definitely was appreciative of the people in the community, and the people in the school that helped get it that way. We did a good job of promoting it. Our kids did a really good job of promoting it as well. And that was awesome. Another awesome piece of that was how excited our kids were about all that was going on, to see them participate in that and really get out in the community and tell people about it. That was a really cool experience. And that was in my first year. So that was, 3 years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday.
So, the school year's coming right up, and there's a lot to get ready for when it's also the start of football season. So I know it's a busy time for you, and I was happy that you made time for the show today, but I also know that you're a continual learner, right? And you're trying to find time to learn as much as you can about it, football, strength and speed, all the stuff that you're doing. And what I want to know is what's maybe your emphasis or your focus for strength and speed this year? What are you trying to learn about?
Yeah. So I think it kind of started, maybe last winter, and I'm going to continue to learn more about it, is, the movement, just whether it's change of direction, agility, speed. There's a lot going on right now in that. I mean, if you get on Twitter, it seems like that's the big topic. I really want to learn more about that. Whether it's, Coach Zwiefel up at BBA. I mean, he does a phenomenal job with that. I just think that that's a really big piece right now, and that's huge in athletics. I want to learn more about how we can do better in our program on that, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But I need to learn more on that. When it comes to the weight room side of things, I think, I'm going to continue to just, continue to look to people like you and other coaches here in Iowa that we got some really good coaches, and continue just to, see what's going on, see what they're doing, and continue to get better that way. Whether, last year, I started looking into the triphasic stuff a little bit by Cal Dietz, and, there's a couple of coaches in Iowa that have had some experience with that. So that was something that I did for the first time, that I programmed for the first time, was this past school year. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked that. So I think continue to include some triphasic training, I really think there's some benefits to that. So those are kind of some things in the strength and conditioning field that I really want to continue to hit on. And, the movement piece, whether even the movement in the weight room, like the movement over maxes by Zach Chant, I think is phenomenal too.
Yeah, those are definite things that I think you're right, that are kind of prominent, in the social media and just strength coaches talking about them a lot. And that's had some really awesome conversations. I'm excited to learn more about movement in general also, like there's a ton on just agility and what true agility looks like. And then also what it looks like to have max velocity, speed training.
Yeah.
And I think both of those are very, very important for athletics, and obviously, right. So it is cool to have something that's really being emphasized right now, and all the opportunities to learn. So very cool stuff with that. If you were to recommend your favorite professional development resource, what would it be? So it could be like books, articles, podcasts, videos, whatever it is. What's one of your go-to things?
Yeah, I would probably say, and it probably changes throughout the year depending on what I'm doing, but I think, in the last year, it's been podcasts, just like the Big Time Strength podcast. It's been really beneficial for me just to, on my drive to school, on my drive home, to be able to, turn that podcast on and listen to it. It's been a great resource. And then, I'm a book guy, usually around Christmas vacation and that January, February month when we get all those snow days. I usually try to read a few books. So those are my go-tos. And then obviously I think going to clinics, like the clinic this past year at Johnston, I thought was a great resource, to actually get there and get in front and see face-to-face some of these guys that, whether you listen to or you see on Twitter, and get to actually see them face-to-face and be able to ask them questions personally. I mean, so that's always a great thing. And then whether it's just heading down the road on a winter break and talking to you, those are that was another great day. So, but those are my go-tos.
I think just being able to have so many options is such a great deal, and just sorting through the information is the biggest thing, right? And what to pick from all that information and implement. And like we're just trying to be an awesome filter for great content, and just being able to apply it is the next step, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Coach, if I were to ask you, what is the thing that separates you or your program or Anamosa High School in general? Just like, what is it that you're doing to make the big time where you're at?
I was trying to think about this question before we got on, and there's a bunch of stuff that comes to mind, but I think the number one thing is, and I think a lot of people do this, is that we're giving them a true experience on what a strength and speed program looks like. But I think what really separates us is our kids know that we care about them as people, and that it's bigger, that this strength and conditioning, strength and speed program, athletics in general, it goes beyond this, and that we're trying to make them better people for the rest of their life. And that, yeah, we know that, football, basketball, wrestling, soccer, whatever the sport may be, probably the chances of it lasting, too much longer after high school, or if you're lucky enough to go to college, you're not going to be able to play it for the rest of your life. But if we can somehow, our program can give you those habits to make you a better person and to fulfill you in life, then I really feel like we're making the big time. And that to me is kind of what, I don't know if it separates our program, but it made our program special up to this point, is that our kids know that it goes way beyond that 4,000 square foot space that we're in and that we're doing a lot of our work in.
That's awesome, Coach. I think that that you just encapsulated, what is such a big deal for strength and speed and all that, just in general, is not just high level performance at, whatever level you're at, high school, college, whatever it is, but more high level performance for the rest of their life and what that looks like to be an awesome individual. So great stuff, Coach. To finish out here, I want to ask you some quick finisher questions. There'll be 5 of them, and I'll ask you a question. You kind of just throw them out there, and they're meant to be a little bit fun, and then also maybe throw out some good information if it's a quote or a book or whatever it is. So, okay. You ready to roll?
Yep.
Awesome. What is your favorite book?
I have so many, but probably my favorite one is the Win Forever book by Pete Carroll. And I think that really, I don't know if you've read it. I was not necessarily a Pete Carroll fan when I read it. I read it because I read a book called Culture Defeats Strategy, and Randy Jackson recommended that book. So I went and read this Win Forever book by Pete Carroll, and I ended up falling in love with it because I thought it really embodied what I was about as a coach and where I was going. And it's a great book. Whether you're a Pete Carroll fan or Seahawks fan or USC fan, it's a great book.
I have seen you do a lot with it, but I did not know about the book even. So I'm going to put that on my list now. That's awesome.
Yep.
Coach, what's your favorite hobby outside of training?
So outside of my own training or training the kids?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Outside of training in general, yourself or the kids, what's your go-to thing?
So it used to be fishing a lot. I used to do that a lot, and I think just with how my life's changed in the last few years, it's really turned to spending time with family. And I don't think that's probably right to say that that's a hobby, but I would say that when I'm not coaching football, coaching in the weight room, our strength and speed program, I'm trying to really engulf myself into my wife and my son as much as possible. And, if my other hobby would be working out myself, reading books, and then, when my son gets old enough, we're going to do a lot more fishing. But, that's kind of where we're at in life right now.
That's awesome. If you had 15 minutes to train yourself, what would you be doing?
If I had 15 minutes, I'm probably going to do a set of squats, either back squats, single leg squats. I'm going to get some pull-ups in, and if I have that time, I'm going to do maybe bench press or hang clean. If I had to pick one, I would probably do hang clean and then push-ups. And that's what I would try to get done in 15 minutes.
Knock it out quick. I like that.
Yep.
What about the person that's influenced you the most? And that could be strength and speed, or that could just be life in general.
Yeah, I would say in life in general, probably my grandpa. My grandpa had a large impact on myself, just as far as how to treat people, a work ethic. He even when he was retired, just watching him how hard he worked in his profession. Even when he was retired, still working hard, whether it was in the yard, in the community. He was the Iowa Volunteer of the Year, I think, when I was younger, and that really impacted me as a kid. and to see him and how he treated every single person every single day. I don't know if I ever saw him angry or mad or impatient with people. And he had just a large impact on me. Yeah.
All right, Coach. Last question here. Who's a small school coach who's killing it and deserves a shout out?
So I would say Ben Hildebrandt at Midland High School. And I don't know if he's been given a shout out before or not, but he's somebody that we had kind of had some interaction with before this year. And then I met him up at the BBA clinic. And then we've had some conversations back and forth. And he's so close to Anamosa now that we're hoping to kind of get together here in the next year. But I've been watching him and what he's been doing. He's starting his first year at Midland. I think he did their summer camp last year, but he's now going to be in their school this year. He got a teaching position there as a PE guy, and he's doing their strength and speed stuff. And I've already seen that he's making a large impact just as far as the participation numbers and what he's doing. He's been posted on social media, so I've been able to see that. So he's absolutely crushing it, and he's only been there a few months.
Yeah, I think he's on top of his game. I met him at the BBA clinic also, and man, it was really cool just to hear him talk about his knowledge of speed training. And I want to pick his brain a little bit too. So maybe we should just figure out that meetup.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, Coach. If somebody wanted to reach out to you or get a hold of you, what would be the best way for that to happen?
I'd say either my Twitter or just shoot me an email. My Twitter handle is @CoachStanton20. And then my email is lstanton, STANTON, and then @anamosa.kl.ia.us.
Awesome. I'll have those linked up in the show notes also. Coach, I want to just thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're
absolutely.
a busy man right now, and it was awesome to be able to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit and get to know what you're doing at Anamosa High School and just helping people try to hit their full potential. So thanks, Coach.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. I love what you guys are doing.